So I alluded to this video back when I was doing the Eddy iceberg, and when I got to entry for the Lost episode 34, I started talking about creepypastas in general, while mostly reviewing that one, and I just quickly skimmed over a lot of things and gave over a bunch of personal thoughts, and then I mentioned how this entry would have to get its own video, and this is what this video is. Now, while that was the main inspiration for making this, and will be the pasta that I'm probably going to be exemplifying the most, this video in general is just me being like more open and wanting to give out all of my overcomplicated thoughts on creepypastas, and their entire history, what their appeal was, where they went wrong, etc. You probably hopefully get the point by reading whatever this video is going to be titled. But yeah, while I will be discussing episode 34 of Ed and Eddy a lot, I'm going to be talking about creepypastas as a whole. Now, I would like to say first of all that a lot of the things I will say in here I already kind of went over in my video about Wet Dry World being the new Lavender Town. And I mentioned it in there, I was specifically talking about video game creepypastas in that video, and how they're back now. But this one is going to be more so general, so I went over a few points here that are still relevant for this one. But I think I also said before that some of the stuff I wanted to say more and then stopping myself was I need to save that for later. And this is where I'm going to be talking about that too. And a lot of the stuff that I say there though, I really think that you should probably look at to get a better idea of this one. I normally don't say this at all, but I'm actually really proud of how that video turned out. I just did one take, and it was unscripted, much like how this one is, just so it's, more, pure and conversational. But I feel like I ended up, saying, what I wanted to in that really well and really clearly, and yeah, it was pretty good, and I had fun making that video, so please do watch that, because not enough people have. But anyway, creepypastas, so I've been pretty critical of them, I say that in there too, and whenever I would make one on this channel, it would be a joke one, and I also like listening to the older videos of Yuri of Wynn's bullshit creepypasta story time. Now, let me say, and I think I said this in the iceberg also, is that I really loved creepypastas back in 2011. And that lasted for a while, but 2011 was when I found them and got really big on them. Now, today, I might see them as mostly a joke, but I still kind of take offense to when people are like, oh, all creepypastas are bad, and they're all stupid shit, stupid, fucking, not scary and stuff, and yeah, I kind of have to agree in them not being scary, but I mean, some of them might still kind of unnerve me, later in the day, but no, not really. And, I still feel bad when people are kind of that close-minded and say that they're all bad or they're not good stories, because there are genuinely some that are, just kind of, well-written stories, the channel, if I remember correctly. I think it's called Channel Zero or something. I don't know, it's one about a kid who found, a channel that predicted the future or something, but anyway, there are some that can be genuinely good stories, and a lot of the classics are good stories that unfortunately fall completely apart at some point, like Squidward Suicide, Tommy Boy, a lot of Dead Bart falls apart pretty early on, and even some Teddy and such, where they were so good at first and interesting, but then they just fall apart at some point, they try too hard to be real, or they try too hard to be dark, and that's really the problem with I would say basically all of them. And going back to me making my own creepypastas, I make fun of that aspect mostly in cliches and stuff and try to make them funny, which is where I get my enjoyment from them now. I don't want to take it seriously. However, something that I genuinely try to go for, and I've said this before, is kind of giving them this comforting, nostalgic vibe. And yes, I am nostalgic for creepypastas now, since that was already 10 fucking years ago, unbelievably. But even back then, they kind of gave, this sense of nostalgia, and I talk about that more in the Lavender Town Wet Dry World video. And it's just, the idea of being in your room, chilling out, maybe having some snacks, it's a good day, you're taking a break from everything, and then suddenly something fucking weird happens on your TV show or your video game, but maybe it's, harmless, And that would be something really cool to see and talk about. And I just like that cozy, like, chill house atmosphere, especially since, like, that's something I can't get often personally in my household. But yeah, I mean, that's especially stronger when you're a kid or, like, a younger teen, which is my age when I found them. And now I'll be using episode 34 of Ed and Eddy to be talking about everything I've been saying, in that the really good part of that creepypasta, and I said before in the iceberg maybe that, like, somebody also said this is why Dead Bark worked so well, was like the idea of like, hey, there's this episode of The Simpsons where Bart dies, like a playground rumor almost, though this doesn't really have the same, but it's a similar like category idea. And Squidward's suicide kind of falls into this. And really, I'd say all the other video game ones, just like the idea of a cursed cartridge, and that's kind of where like the anti-piracy and Mario 64 being personalized stuff has returned to, but better. And it's just the idea of like being a kid, waking up at like 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m., whatever it was, and it's like, oh, Ed and Eddy, and suddenly this fucked up version of Ed and Eddy comes on. Like, that would be fucking cool, and you would want to like tell that to your friends and shit, and spread a rumor, like, did you guys see that? And start this whole entire thing going on that your friends would probably remember later on. And again, just that cozy atmosphere of like finding it in the comfort of your own room or whatever. And now you have the internet to share that. And I probably just talked while putting my thumb in front of my mouth. But yeah, that's where the creepypastas really excel at. And I think that's like the main appeal of them. It's just like that idea where you take a story, like a show or a cartoon or a game. Well, cartoons are shows, but you know what I mean. And just like putting them in the situation that everybody can relate to, but you put the scary, like, creepy atmosphere hook into it. And that's where like the current Mario 64 stuff, again, that I keep on repeating and made a whole video on already, kind of excels at. And that's what people like most about them, and that's why people like the stuff that like Mario Nova makes, and sometimes Greenio makes, and sometimes the Super Mario Beta Archive also makes, compared to like, ooh, spooky Wario screaming at me stuff. Like, Mario 64 Beta Archive is just mwah, especially the earlier stuff before they started like getting into like dev name things and shit. It was like the anti-piracy screen that they made up that looks legit, and like the also like genuinely real looking beta stuff that's like the best, and also like kind of comforts. I mean, captures what made those old pastas work. And like, it's just unfortunate because like a lot of people mainly focused on like, ooh, these scary blood, and that's where criticism for creepypastas comes from now, and that's why they're also made fun of a lot, like including by me, even though I generally liked them at a point. But yeah, like, I mean, the Ed and Eddy creepypasta, like, it falls for that too with Jimmy and Rolf. I mean, like, by just ooh blood, I mean like all the dark stuff, like the random fucking sex, the blood, the death, the anger. I mean, the fucking purgatory theory is the most guilty of this. Like, all of those dark cartoon theories at the time were the worst in these offenders. Sorry, I'm taking a lot of inhales, but yeah, that's unfortunately what a lot of people saw in them. That's kind of what the authors emphasized the most too, even though I feel like that they generally kind of maybe want to go for that comforting feel inside a bit. But yeah, that's like what came off the most, and it's like, why would you do that? Well, I guess it's just, one, it was new at the time, like that's what got me like hooked. And like, maybe you kind of did that as a kid and joked around a bit, but that was the first time it was like massively available and actually like a public thing to see. And like I said earlier, for me being hooked into it, that's the main reason, is that that kind of shock was the hook to get people in, and unfortunately it overstayed its welcome. And now I can finally talk about this, because I've mentioned it a few times and I've said that's for another time, but now is that time. And I've been wanting to openly express this for a while now, so excuse me if I get a little bit excited. But this is a thing that I believe a lot of people overlook. It's kind of like why Pokemon Gen 5 got unfair criticism when it first came out, even though it's objectionably the best generation. Yes, I said it. I blame toxic Gen 1 or 90s nostalgia for why that generation got criticism. But to not go off topic, this relates because I feel what ruined the image for Creepypasta forever was Sonic.exe, or specifically, as a friend of mine said before, when people realize that Sonic.exe is bad, because that is the most erroneous example of all that stupid blood, death, whoa, so scary, ooh, it's real, I swear stuff, and over and over and over again. And unfortunately, that ended up getting really mainstream popular. Creepypasta was getting like more surface level knowledge by 2012 when that came out. And that just came out at the worst time, hit the worst people, and that's all what they saw in it. And now Creepypasta will never be taken seriously again, or written seriously. Or to be more optimistic, until now that is, as I've been saying a lot with that Mario 64 and other old video game stuff. And that comment that I mentioned, that failed, that was really cool, because it was like, oh hey, maybe personalized copies are the reason why all of those old creepypastas happened. But yeah, I've been rambling a lot of this, but I feel like I hopefully have been getting my points across, and that what really makes them work, at least to me, and the appeal to them has always been that kind of like sense of nostalgia, and like that comfort of like finding it in your own thing and some hobby that we can all relate to and share with our childhoods and such. But just like putting this weird angle on it, and going back to episode 34, like the best moment I said in the iceberg video for me in that pasta was the claymation double D part. Just cause that's like creative and new, and it's like subtly creepy and weird and stupid. Well, I mean stupid in a good way, but yeah, like, I mean, it's not in your face, like, Double D's head doesn't fucking explode into hyper-realistic blood and shit, and scream at you. There's literally a creepypasta like that actually called You Forgot for Eddy and Eddy. But yeah, like, that kind of stuff, like, it hits what, like, creates the Mario 64 videos that people liked, where it's like, hey, it looks like this could have been real, and, I mean, maybe not exactly that part, but that could be one of the positives, and then mainly just the part of, like, this seems like something I would dream about as a kid, or there's just something oddly creepy about this. And that's kind of what should, like, work best with creepypastas, and what could make them, like, really interesting and good and fun again. Well, I mean, they already are, but yeah. And that's also kind of like criticism I've been here of the anti-piracy, and one that I personally have is that a lot of them are just too in your face, and I kind of got tired of them really fast, and the ones I remember the most are the ones that feel like they could have been real, like a Persona 5 one was my favorite so far, or at least what's sticking the most with me. But yeah, I feel like I got across everything I want to. Maybe I'll remember something after this, and I could leave in the comments or description. But yeah, let me know how you all think about this, and what you liked most about pastas and such. And, you know, Ed Boyce and crap. Well, see you all